concerning the referendum?
We didn't intend to cut you off, sir. It's just that I'm going to be going to work here soon. I'm a chef here in Hickory, and Friday and Saturday are our busiest days of the week, so it's mandatory that I get to work here before too long. But I have a blog. I started it 4 years ago, and it pertains. I believe it's a nonpartisan blog. I'm a Republican. Okay, so you can boo me if you want to.
No,
okay?
You have your right.
But the thing about it is that we saw issues with the city council. We believe the city council is supposed to be a nonpartisan body, but you have advocacy issues at every level of our society, and they don't necessarily pertain to party politics. What we see here on the local level are not party politic issues. And 2 years ago, I reached out to Mr. Larry Pope. He's been labeled as being a radical in some corners of this area, but you know what? I'm not afraid of anything. I'm not afraid to speak to people. And the biggest issue that we face is that we have to learn to listen to one another. And what we have seen with the city council, in my particular opinion, and at all levels of the local governance, is that people aren't willing to listen to one another. And it's not about hearing somebody. There's a difference between listening and hearing people. Because I believe y'all are listening to me right now. Of course, I have a loud voice, and I'm not afraid to state my opinion on issues. A lot of people, they're sitting there and they're, oh God, who am I going to offend with this? Well, my intention is not to offend anybody, it's to wake people up. And there is a complete lack of participation in this community right now. And it is something that has been caused because people are afraid to stand up, because they're afraid that, you know, it may have an effect on their personal life. And I've made some sacrifices with this whole thing because I've upset the apple cart. And there are people that they're not going to go out of their way to help me one bit. But if you stand up and you allow your voice to be heard, we can move forward in this community. And I've been told there was a meeting that I went to last week where it was stated that if we had a more positive attitude, that we could move forward in this community. And I believe that we have to have accountability from our leadership.
Correct. That's a conservative value.
Okay.
It is, right?
Right. Well, that's a human value.
It is a human value.
But here's the deal: is that when we look, there are surveys out there and other developments that bodies across this country are looking at our area, and we're in the bottom 5 to 10% as far as the way that the statistics show us. And these surveys, one is from the Milken Institute out in California. There's a health-way study that shows that we're not looking too good as far as our health in this community. And we have to wake people up and get them to take, this is a conservative value. We have to get people to take ownership of their personal lives.
Well, that's anybody's value, or should be.
It should be, but if you look at other people to solve your problems for you, it's a lot harder to solve those problems if I'm depending on somebody else to come forward to solve my problems. I have to take ownership, and I have to participate in my governance to be able to move forward. And that's not happening currently. So what we have to do is that is what this is about. You know, a friend of mine, he said the reason that he believes that this referendum is going to pass is because I don't want somebody else telling me what to do in my ward. Okay?
Now, to rephrase that, what it, now
I don't want
exactly?
somebody telling me what to do in my ward.
Someone outside.
You mean
someone
outside, you should have
Outside.
used the word outside of
Exactly,
the ward.
exactly.
That's why it
Yes,
didn't come
because
across.
right now, we're told that allowing somebody to vote in the 6 elections that take place 3 every 2 years, that you have more of a voice. But in the end, you don't have a voice because it dilutes your voice in your particular neighborhood. Because if I live in Ward 1 or 2 or all the way down the line, and I vote for my candidate, if somebody deemed from outside of my ward deems that candidate as rocking the boat, okay, and in some cases we might need to rock the boat a little bit because we have a status quo situation in our community. The 5 wards opposing that can come forward and say, no, we don't want that boat rocker being elected. So they vote against him. And we've had that situation to occur several times since this electoral policy was instituted in 1970, where people have won their ward, but in the primary, they call it a primary, and then when it comes to the November general election, then they're voted out of office. And you can look up the history of that. But so what we want to do is we want to move forward with this issue, and we truly believe that we're going to get people to come and truly represent their issues at the local level in this community, and that's going to empower the wards. And by empowering the wards, okay, with people that are actively participating in their local issues, then as a whole, it's going to be Ward 1 plus Ward 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Whereas right now, what you have is you're dividing up the interest within the 6 wards. We have division, okay, and then they're only representing a few people. It allows money to be interjected into the system, and the moneyed interests come from certain wards that aren't being represented. But that's neither here nor there, because what we want to do is this isn't about we don't want to pick on people because they've accumulated some wealth, because wealth should be we should respect people who have wealth. Many of those people have worked for that wealth.
Yes, but at the same time, they shouldn't control the power either.
You shouldn't control the power. And that's what built this country and made this country great, was the egalitarian system.
The slaves helped too.
Everybody helped, absolutely. But I'm going to turn this over to Joe, because he's a lot more eloquent spokesman. He's a professional politician. and this is a man that I admire greatly, because he's the one that's helped me to form ideas that I had, but I was able to articulate them better because he's a lot more level-headed than I am in a lot of circles.
And thank you.
Thank you.
I'll keep it quick. About 2 years ago, as Tom said, there was 4 of us from the white community, 4 folks from the black community: Jesse, Walter, Larry, and Billy, and Harry, and myself, and Cliff, and Tom. We got together and just talked about what's going on in the city, what's wrong with the city. It's just 8 guys getting together in a coffee shop. And I think there's groups in the city, like the Chamber of Commerce, that get together that try to better the city. But the difference is, when the Chamber of Commerce does it, it's for them. It's how does this benefit us specifically, our group. And the 8 of us got together and we cast away the labels. There wasn't 4 blacks or 4 whites or Republicans or liberals or North Hickory or South Hickory. It was just 4 folks getting together to say, how can we do something good for the community where everybody benefits, not just any one particular of us. And we talked about ward representation, we talked about term limits, and get turnover in government, to get ideas to come to the top and not personalities or people. And one of the things that we're getting attacked on for this referendum is Mayor Wright started to say, well, this is just a black thing. Well, 54% or 56% of the signers are white. So there goes that argument. Well, this is just a Republican thing. Well, no, this was just a Ward 4 thing. And we knocked that down. 32% of the signers are from Ward 4, 29% are from Ward 6. That's Northwest Hickory. That's Jill Patton's ward. There's only a 3% difference there. Then it was a Republican versus Democrat thing. And when you throw in unaffiliated voters that signed the petition, it balances out there. So now, I just pulled up on Facebook, now it's crackpots. People that signed the petition are crackpots.
The mayor's Facebook page,
It's
right?
the mayor's Facebook page.
Yeah.
So he couldn't make it about
if this
black,
passes,
white.
you're going to get a crackpot.
I'm going to get crackpots.
Yes.
So that's a good sign.
That should go into the news media.
Well, we're working on that.
That's always here.
The thing is, one of my big things was, and I will publicly apologize for this today, I ran Hank Guess's campaign. He's my cousin. I served as his treasurer. And
Well, he's a nice guy.
he's a super nice guy. I'll give you that.
You're better looking than him, so.
Well,
I know.
But I was just stunned by the low voter turnout for that election.
Yes.
And, one of the things, this is where I come from. I know there's 2,700 people that signed this petition. There's 2,700 different reasons why they signed the petition. This is my reason. Voter turnout is low. Somehow, to raise this community up again and get it moving forward, we have to increase the number of people that are participating. From all sides, both parties, just from across the board, we need more people involved. I started thinking about the neighborhood associations that are in this city. We have one in Claremont, Oakwood, Green Park, Ridgeview, Kenworth, West Hickory, and there's a couple more. The ones that are active are the ones in Kenworth, West Hickory, and Green Park.
I'm on the Historic Preservation Commission. I'm one of them.
Okay.
And so those are your historic commissions.
Right.
That's why we're the ones that have those meetings for them.
Here, I don't want to label too much, but the ones that are active, the ones that meet regularly on a monthly basis, are the ones on the far side of the city. The ones on the north side of the city just simply don't meet.
Ridgeview doesn't.
Ridgeview, I forgot Ridgeview.
Oh, yeah.
They meet.
Oh, yes, they do.
They meet
Yes.
because they have to meet. The Oakwood Neighborhood Association doesn't have to meet. They get their needs taken care of because it's Oakwood. Same thing with Claremont. Not to pick on Jay where he lives. But so to make these neighborhood associations more relevant, if you go to a ward system, that's where your leaders are going to come out of.
Exactly.
These neighborhood associations. That's where the candidates are going to go to meet with the community, to hear what the community's ideas are. I go to the Green Park and West Hickory Neighborhood Association meetings, and then the turnout there is low. It's the same, half dozen people every month. I think if we go to a ward system, it's going to reinvigorate these neighborhood associations, get their turnout up, get more people, make them more democratic too. Representative democracy, Billy, right? So there's a ton of benefits. I don't know of any downsides that I can think of. And having talked to people through the petition process, other than, well, the way we do it is the way we do it, and therefore it's the best way we do it. I haven't heard of a reason of why we shouldn't go back to the way we do it. I haven't heard of a reasonable defense of the current system.
The key is to get people to vote. It'll be an odd time. You don't get them to vote when it's off presidential election year, that this is the same thing. And so the key is to say, go vote.
Well, and with this petition process too, and I was disappointed this didn't get into the paper with Larry Clark, but this petition process goes to show, our mindset is politics is something that comes around in the fall every other year, every 4 years. And this petition process has shown that politics and democracy and government is something that you can participate in and be active in 365 days a year. And my background is Tom's Republican. I'm a registered Republican. I work for Congressman Ballinger and Congressman and then Senator Burr. And so that's my background. And, being involved, whether I agree with you or disagree with you, getting involved makes both parties stronger. And like I said,
And like Mr. Dawkins said, a lot of local issues are not relevant.
It's not
exactly
partisan.
All politics are local, or should be.
There are things that we want to do moving forward as far as the city council, the way that the meetings operate, because right now it's a pageant. They have the things set up, they would just want to run through the system. We would like to move the citizens requesting to be heard to the front of the meetings, because we went through an issue where, yes, we did pull a fast one on them because of their own, I know, but according to them, they felt like it was, because they labeled it as gotcha politics. But the thing about it was, their own wording said that we had a right to question their consent agenda. And when we questioned their consent agenda, they moved quickly to shut down that process. Okay, but the problem is that with the structure, I call it a tent, but the structure in downtown, okay, because of the way that they use the parking fund to build that. Because they used the parking fund, they didn't have to have any public input on that issue.
No, I think it's because it's under $300,000. I think
okay,
that's why.
but the way that it was explained to me, the way that it was explained to me was that they did not have to have any public debate on that issue because they used the parking fund. And the thing about it is, that's their money. That's our money. That's the way they view it. It's our money. It's not the people's money.
But now
okay, but here's the deal. Okay, if we move the citizens requesting to be heard to the front of the agenda, then before they can run through the consent agenda, then somebody could come up there and make their point of view. And if they articulate very well a good point of view, then they're going to have to sign off on that consent agenda against whatever that good point of view is.
If you go to Catawba County Commissioners, Caldwell County Commissioners, Iredell County Commissioners, Statesville City Council, and Lenore City Council, all of them put citizens requesting to be heard right after invocation.
But in Hickory, you go to the local association meetings. That is what the city council does in Hickory, is also reflective in those association meetings. They will have people come in from the city, or the school boards, whatever, with West Hickory, Ridgeview, Kenworth, and so forth. They put that there, and some of them, they don't want you to ask any questions.
I know.
When we put the question to them at one point about democracy at the local level and about getting associations to move toward the democratic process, they reject it.
See, this is your government.
And that's the same way city council.
The city government is your government. It is not their government. So you, by right, should be able to be heard. That is all we are asking for. We are asking for people to be able to be heard. It is not to be heard to speak from a left-leaning agenda or from a right-leaning agenda. It is for people to be able to voice their opinion. Yes.
Well, they're willing to let you voice your opinion to them personally. You can call them on, they're very open to have you call them on your cell phone or call them at home. But they don't want to hear anything publicly. They don't want these issues brought up publicly. They'd rather have you call them personally. And that's sort of the whole mingling thing they're doing now before the meeting. kind of walk around to say hello to everybody, because they want to deal with those issues without a public record. They want to avoid having anything on the public record.
Well,
So they want to have you call and say, I'm in favor of this, Mayor. You say, well, you know, Tom, you're a crackpot.
No, or also say
And he can say that to you.
I know.
But I'll tell
We
you,
don't
the
want
issue that really, you might get more people out to vote, is they, when it hit the paper, that it was gonna be about $450,000 of the money. I mean, they are very unhappy with the
Why
city.
aren't we hearing from anyone?
City,
I mean, why aren't
well,
they
they're
here?
personally, they'll sell
They don't
that
come to
to
And
you.
this is the same group of people that are at every meeting.
Yeah,
So,
well, I'm talking about
Stop,
in,
you know?
in talking personally. So you might say, well, if you want to see how your money and have an input on your money being spent, go vote.
I just want to, I would like to,
Address
I would like to, I hate calling you out, Jay, but I really admire the things that you have to say, because we've had in-depth conversations on a lot of issues, and you have spoken eloquently about why that you support this issue, and could you speak to that? I know that.
I'm not there.
No, well, none of us
My
are.
wife would be horrified.
We're winging it.
Behind the podium, man, just stand right there.
Speak from the heart.
I'm Jay Adams, and I do live in the Claremont section over here. And I'm in commercial real estate. My company's Adams Commercial Real Estate Services. You see all the acres signs all around town. And I've been involved with that profession for 27 years. And that puts you very closely in touch with Hickory City government. I mean, you're just automatically going to be doing a rezoning, you're going to be doing something, you're going to be engaged with them to figure out what they'll let you do or what they don't want you to do, and so on and so forth. And I got to tell you something, it's better now than it used to be. It is better now than it used to be. But I felt strongly about things, and I've run for council twice, most forgettably, and I ran for mayor. And I outspent Rudy 6-1, and he beat me. And the reason why I am in favor of making this change, y'all have talked about a bunch of things, but the thing I want to see is I want to see new faces on council.
True.
I want to see,
Statement.
and I think one of the things we all have to keep in mind that we're citizens of Hickory, every one of us. Doesn't matter where we live, doesn't matter what we do, we're all citizens of Hickory, and we all need to work together. But I do think that, and let me just say this about ward versus at large. Apparently, and I haven't done a whole lot of research, but apparently most communities are moving more to the at-large system. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand that that's the trend. So we're actually moving somewhat backwards, but I don't care about that. What I care about is this. I ran for council. Running for council is precisely the same as running for mayor. You got to print up signs to go all over town. You got to politic. You got to go all over town. The first time I ran, I was in a primary, and so I had to run in the ward. I had to run against 2 people in the ward. And I walked my ward. I lost 15 pounds doing it. I thought about doing it again, you know, just kind of walking around and saying hello to everybody. And I had a ball doing it. I had an absolute ball doing it. I got to tell you one quick story. I was over there on 5th over by Hampton Heights Golf Course, walking through that neighborhood, and one knocked on the door. And the door had no smoking, oxygen in use. And this lady came to the door, she opened the door, and she had her oxygen mask on, and she said, "You're Mary Frank Colrider's son." And I said, "That's right." She said, "I'd recognize those eyebrows anywhere." She had graduated from Hickory High with my mother in 1938.
Oh my goodness.
And I sat down there and talked to her for about half an hour, and she was gone about 3 months later. She didn't, I don't know if she got the vote or not. But the point about it is we all need to be more involved with politics. We need to see more turnover in the council. It would be a lot easier for people to run for council if they were just dealing with their ward. This may be a good thing, it may not be a good thing. We don't know. We should try it out. I mean, I'm fine with trying something, just get more people. I'm for term limits. I had lunch with Rudy the day before yesterday, and I'm very point blank with Rudy. Rudy and I have remained friends. He's always done my sign work for me. He's always made my signs for me. And I told him when I ran against him, I said, you know, we're both going to get a vote from Donna. His wife's named Donna. My wife's named Donna. I said, your wife's going to vote for me. My wife's going to vote for me. So you can have differences of opinion, differences about how we go about doing things. You can be different colors, and you can still be good citizens of Hickory. That has nothing to do with it. Yes, sir.
So Jay, I don't know the demographics of Hickory, so I'm just asking. If it goes to all district,
Ward.
to all ward, if it goes to all ward, is it where it's going to be fair for all communities of the city?
They're evenly, they do balance them numerically. They get the same numbers in there. I think there is some effort, well, at least there's an analysis of what the demographic, you know. But Hickory's become far more diverse.
Yeah.
In the last, I mean, it's changed a whole lot in the last 25 years.
Well, I guess I worry more about, instead of it being, because people still are talking in terms of race or whatever, but I'm thinking more ideology. Like the people of Claremont, will they get represented better with the district as opposed, so their opinions get heard as opposed to.
I think so. Claremont's got it.
I'm just using that. So will the district system help people from different sides of town make sure that
there are no guaranteed outcomes.
No.
But the thing about this is that it's going to enable people to debate one another.
Jay,
And the better ideas are going to come.
And I find the policy from the Institute of Southern Studies from the University of North Carolina and Chris Crone.
That's right.
They sent out a newsletter, and it's the most crucial issues. And one was it weighed the School of Government at the University of North Carolina weighed the pros and cons of our system, and that was so helpful. And actually, you know, we could have everybody on the council at large. You know, after the wards.
Yeah, but everybody on council is at large.
Yes.
That's the way it
but
is.
there are all kinds of
No, I think what she's saying is the same people could still hold those positions.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true.
If they live in that ward now. There's your catch.
But I find that very helpful. It's the Institute for Southern Studies.
I think the biggest problem that Hickory has is we have completely given ourselves over to the management form of government.
Yes.
And you know, yes, sir.
The pure ward system versus the at-large system, and I use this as a bad example. How could Hank Guest, representing Ward 4, knowing that the people who live in Ward 4 and pay taxes want the pool to remain, how can he go to city council and vote close the pool? Is he representing his constituency?
That may tie into what I was just about to say about the war, about the city management form of government. I think that, but basically, what I see and what I've seen for the last 27 years is that the staff, the manager, city manager, and his staff will basically make a decision because they're the hired professionals. I've heard this so many times. We don't make those decisions. We leave that up to the hired professionals. So they make. You know, that's a great thing that there's a partnership between the elected officials and to a certain extent there is. But they basically have given over everything to the, quote, professionals. The professionals, and this is one of Hickory's characteristics. We have a mayor who is basically a very numerical guy, very oriented towards fiscal responsibility. You got a city manager who's likewise oriented. And you got a guy who on staff on staff, Warren Wood, who's also geared that way. Well, that's great. They're bean counters. And they're going to watch the dollars very closely. But you need to have creative people. You need to have a more diverse background of thinkers.
Well, Andrea Surratt, I think, is very creative.
Say again?
Andrea Surratt, I think, is very creative.
She has been. She has been. But I've been, I can,
Yeah.
listen, I can criticize and affirm everybody on the staff. But like I say, I just want to see more turnover in city government. I want to see people in office for do 8 or 12 years and be done with it. Go on to something else. You got a city council member that's been on there for 30 years.
Even though Hank Guest would have been outvoted 5-1, he should have stood up for his ward.
Right.
And one of the reasons he didn't is because of this at-large voting, because he probably got put into office by people voting from wards 1, 3, 5, and 6.
Right, and to speak to yours point, let's just say Hickory had to go up on their tax rate. As it is now, you're going to have a unanimous decision to raise the tax rate.
It's going to come from staff.
Whatever, staff recommends approval.
That's right.
Okay,
And
if
that
you have a
way,
ward
it should be
system,
that way.
if you have a ward system, and staff wants to go up 4 cents, 3 cents on the tax rate, right now they're going to go along with it. You go to a ward system, and you're going to have a Danny Seaver and a Hank Guest stand up and say, wait, my constituents can't afford that much of an increase. I can maybe do a cent, cent and a half. Whereas Bruce is going to say, my guys are fine. They can afford the 3%.
They've
Or
been
3
on
cents,
that
whatever.
forever.
But
Well, and
that's
again,
to
I
say,
think the arguments have been made
communities
about
will get represented.
about the closeness. I think you're absolutely correct that the neighborhood associations will become more important. They'll become more charged. I think that's healthy. I think this kind of a meeting here. I see some people here that I saw, 7 years ago when I ran for mayor. It is that you're right. It's the same people who seem to be concerned about the city, who seem to want to see things change, who want to see more activity.
And the reason you don't see a lot of other people here is because of the way things are.
That's exactly
That's
right.
right.
I think that's
Why should I come when I know
But
that
Jesse-
you're going to keep doing things like this, and my vote doesn't count, and what I have to say in my ward means nothing? Why should I come?
But Jesse, what you are talking about, what I'm talking about, what Joe's talking about, and Jay are talking about, accountability. Okay, right now they are accountable. They feel like to the city staff because the city staff are the professionals, the hired hands. They look at themselves as part-time amateurs. I've heard the thing said that as far as the amount of money that they're paid to perform their job is a stipend. They don't look at it, but if you look at it, they are paid to perform their job. Yet I don't think that we're getting our money's worth.
The mayor gets health care.
Let me say this though before we hit
They all do.
further.
They all do. No way.
and spouses.
Well, this could go
Say
on.
this before we hit a lot of this further about this staff stuff.
Thanks, Jay.
Because about 5 or 6 years ago, thank you, Jay. About 5 or 6 years ago, this staff recommended that the corporate Hickory should raise taxes on corporate Hickory to improve roads. And then the newspaper also supported that. Everyone on city council supported that. The staff supported that. Until corporate Hickory went before city council and said that's not a good idea. Then the newspaper, the staff, and the city council decided that it wasn't a good idea. And I've been knowing this since I was a teenager. Corporate Hickory run this city. I'm not naive about that. I know we have to democracy local level because of the mere fact that we are powerless. If you're poor and minority, you're powerless. If you're middle class, you're powerless because the blend system lends itself to that.
I can tell you right now that the city will act against anyone, and I have been acted against many times. I can give you examples. If you upset them, if you step out of line, they'll punish you. But it's not nearly as bad now as it was in the beginning.
I understand.
So after the first time I spoke at council, I had never had a fire inspection. I had a fire inspection that week, and I also had an OSHA inspection, which I never had before.
So, and I hate to say this, but that's true. And what we're saying also is why we want this system is because, as I said earlier, it reflects itself on the total citizenry because of the real fact that they feel that they're pretty hopeless. They don't vote anymore. I know
That's
that,
right. You're
Tom
right.
pointed out to me the fact we had about 26,000 voters in this city.
In the last election, no position was contested. Okay, so 4.5% of the people voted. In the election that my friend Harry Hips ran against Jill, you had 2 contested races. You had Hank that ran against Z-Ann, and you had Harry that ran against Jill. 8.5% of the voting electorate here in Hickory voted.
So that leads to the question because like I said, I'm not taking a side, I'm just asking a question since we need to get out the vote stuff type work. If your election for this is September the 18th, what are you looking at as far as how are you going to be able to, because the turnout there is going to be probably horrible.
Yeah.
And how are you going to build your support?
No, we fully intend to attack this issue with every fiber of our being.
Well, you
Board
gotta
of
get
Elections
people
is
there.
estimated about 20% turnout.
That much?
That much.
Wow.
We got 10% or more than 10% signed the petition.
But how?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean,
We will have to outwork them. That is, we have to
But how?
organize.
We're going to go and we're going to meet them.
You're right.
directly.
That's what has to happen. It goes to work.
One thing I'd like to just point out is you've got support for this in places that are very, very unusual. I mean, you've got a business community that's for this. The business community is very, very upset with Hickory's response to the circumstances of the last 12 years. The industry leaving the area, and the response to that has been very, very mild, says yes. We've lost, you realize that we have lost in the Hickory metro area 50,000 jobs in the last dozen years. Those jobs have gone away. Now, that doesn't change our unemployment, not 1 point. They're gone. And there just hasn't been a really measurable response to that. And so the business community is saying, who's running the show around here? Why are we not seeing better decisions made? Now, I know y'all are upset about the pool, and I don't know anything much about that. But you can be upset about something. You can be upset about something, and if that motivates you, that's fine. But I'm just saying to you that the business community is also upset. The Chamber of Commerce, they're upset.
But
they're
as Joe made the point, there are 2,707 people that voted or signed this petition. Okay, the thing about it is, there might be 2,707 reasons why people signed this petition. But the thing about it is that it's time that we stop allowing the leadership of this community to label people, and that we start discussing the ideas. I'm not saying no. I'm not talking about anything about race or anything like that. I'm saying to simplify the issues. I mean, we can get to the core of what this is all about, okay? But this, if you go back and you read about what happened in 1967, it's a very complicated. There's a whole history that took 7 years for that whole thing to develop, and probably even longer than that. Okay, so it is a complicated issue, but as I stated, 2,707 people. There are a multitude of reasons, and it's what you alluded to. The business community has a different reason that they support this than the black
But
community.
won't the chamber be fighting this?
No, I don't think so.
I thought so.
Maybe they will, I don't know.
No.
Rudy said that he's going to make sure the Chamber of Commerce
They're
has
very
a forum.
partisan.
Well,
But he said it at the city council meeting, but he
Well,
said it in a way
I'm
expecting
hoping
they're
that
going to
Rudy
fight.
goes to do that.
Well, that's why.
I hope that-
So I just sent
I'm hoping that he does that.
So I just sent y'all a list of 1,000 voters and
We had a dental clinic, you may have read about that in today's Hickory Daily Record, that was from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock at the Hickory Convention Center yesterday, and it was to 3 o'clock, so it was over 25 minutes ago. And so the Dental Society is going to give that whole database of the people that came for dental care throughout the state. And we can take that to the Board of Elections and then send it out to see if they who's registered to vote, who's eligible, and tell that county's Board of Elections to get out the vote. And dental care